Okay, so the Russians continue pushing down. They've run into some German cav up here. Kind of hiding from this unit that attacked them before. You notice Königsberg's clear. They weren't able to scout this out, or weren't willing to really, but they're shifting their axis further and further, trying to get to this city really. Maybe other locations. They also noticed they ran into a weak German force here, which they're going to be able to attack, and that was just a German mistake. You shouldn't... there was something screening it, but it was empty. And you really can't have weak stuff on the front as the Germans, because that's going to get wiped out. So let's do the retreat by the cav first. And one of them doesn't get away. This guy's stuck here. Alright, so he's in trouble. So here we have 3 strength points to 7. That's 2 to 1. And I get a shift in my favor. And yes, I can attack it. I'm not going to be able to advance, but that puts me on the 3 to 1 over here. That's not a great table. We'll pick that up later. And a 1-1 is not a good die roll. So we're talking about 2 steps total. The Germans pull back, and the Russians have to take a step loss. For that, we'll finally get one of these in play. I've been taking 2 step losses on core and single step losses elsewhere, and that's 4 points off the Russians. But then they get to come back here with 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I throw 2 shifts into play. It doesn't really matter. I'm on the top of the chart no matter how you cut it. And that's an eliminated. That does not work out as a none shall pass situation. So the Russians can advance, and they'll take that opportunity because it doesn't push them out of their supply line. Over here, I'm kind of grumpy that I didn't push my supply a little further forward. I could have. I just didn't think. All right. Well, that puts it on the... And as we push into turn 12 here, get this rail back up. I don't know what the Russians are at 13 rail points. They don't really need to use their rails anymore. They're all in Germany. But the Germans have been using theirs. You can see the Germans have again kind of spread out into this same sort of pattern, but the truth is there just aren't a lot of troops left to hold any of that. So a lot of those are blank counters you can see over here. Now, theoretically, the Russian player can't see this. You could have a little screen or something there. But he's probably pretty suspicious that that's the case, that most of them are blanks. There might be a couple of cav, because cav have that amazing ability to get out of battle. The German cav do. But really there's okay, where's the value? The value's here and maybe here. Now the only thing that could have gotten here was if there was anything here, which I don't know if there was or not. But my guess is this is where the line is now. There is a valuable location there. That's a possible target. Otherwise, it looks like no matter what, Samsonov is going to be pushing in far enough to be able to force West Front reinforcements again. And that's 45 points there. As far as I'm concerned, the game's over if that, not if they push, but if they end up getting the roll for that, successful roll for that. Now, the chances of them getting a successful roll are quite good. It's +4 for the 2 headquarters. There's actually a 3rd headquarter which could push in further even. But let's say it's +4 for the 2 headquarters, and then every 10 Russian victory points is another 6. That's +10. -3 for Hindenburg and Ludendorff is +7. That doesn't guarantee anything. I need at least a 2. But yeah, and those reinforcements won't even come on the map. I won't get the ability to use them because the game will run out before they do, but the points will be scored anyway. Roll into turn 12, you see a lot of Russian units out of command control. It's a 50-50 shot with each guy you don't exert command control to, whether or not you'll have full movement capability. And this is a pretty bad roll came up here. I only got a couple of units out of the out of command control status, but I've had some turns where it's been very lucky. Let's see what they can do out of it. Russians continue their push south. extent of their line down here. They actually had an attack where he must have been here, right? Now here. And I can't launch an attack there. And then I had another one here, which is again out of my range to advance. Basically, I had a couple of cav run away successfully. So now it's up to the Germans again. And, you know, really what they're looking at is, can they pick off a little Russian unit like this that is kind of stranded, easy to hit, and will score them some points. They're not going to be able to turn this game around and win it, but they may be able to, you know, reduce the effect of the overall victory, perhaps. Right now we're looking at 68. That's a big hit down to marginal of 18 points, but we'll see. There's also a very good chance. I'm still not outside of that range. The Russians still didn't push hard enough. You know, I needed to protect my troops and keep them kind of all in command, and I just didn't get far enough to force that die roll. Not quite. And this guy's right on the board. Germans launch another all-out attack on Samsonov. They're only going after this unit down here, which is a little weaker than these guys. But they've got him surrounded by zones, which means, well, he can't retreat, and that increases their chances of causing problems. You can see the lines getting thin, though, and they've extended it out here, at least the notional line of, hey, yeah, we've really got troops there. The Russians are pretty damn sure this is the entire German army. They may be wrong. There's a few more pieces hiding. That was not as successful as one would hope. Ended up with a 1-1 result. But the Russian was out of command control, being isolated without Samsonov around. I forgot his lack of... oh well, we were rolling on the top chart anyway, but I forgot that he had no supply. So I could have probably actually hit this one as well, because... oh no, you're not halved for that. Never mind. I'm good. So it actually works out to be a 1-2 because of the lack of command control for the Russians. And the 2 means, well, with nowhere to retreat, he had to take an elimination. But the Germans took 4-step losses. The net effect was 8 points in Germany's favor, but they couldn't really afford the troop losses. And that puts us to turn 13. The Russians make up for that with 5 points off their territorial gains. This game's very much a pain in terms of finding those victory point hexes. Unlike, say, I don't know, the great battles of the American Civil War, if they have a victory point hex on them, or some of the tactical stuff, the tendency here is to actually have these hexes covered. It's not like there's just maybe 1 or 2 hexes that you have to worry about at the front, but instead you've got stuff on top of them all. And in fact, with these little counters, and having to trace to see, hey, this guy's not in supply, he's not going to produce points, it all becomes much, much trickier to see where do I actually have the points. You don't have these, you know, things glaring out at you, and they're in black, so they're kind of not terribly visible either. It's a beautiful map, you know, your Simonson standard, but it's maybe not as functional for this one factor than otherwise, and I'm finding myself very clumsy with the counters today, or this playing. I think it's my age coming up. Russians push their way in a little further, not far enough, far enough, but not with enough strength to launch an attack on a little stack sitting here. That's a lot of points, but I want to chance it over here. Well, I'm just worried about kind of keeping my perimeter and staying safe. As far as I'm concerned, the Russians feel they have it in the bag. They'd love to get the decisive victory, but they're not going to take any big risks to do so. It's up to the Germans to lose even worse at this point if they want to. Continue their turn, throwing away their advantage of sneakiness. Although actually, these guys are going to sneak over here in order to defend this hex better. I was looking to try to get enough force to attack any of these Russians, but any of the attacks would have been at best not wise, and probably very poor. Just trying to hold on to what I got and keep the Russians limited in victory quality. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the last turn, they might be able to force the 45-point hit. If they do that, well, then they're going to pull a couple of corps off the Western Front, and that changes the nature of the victory significantly. But if the Russians can't push forward and force that, well, it's not as terrible as it could be, but it looks pretty bad for the Germans at this point. A lot of players would just hang it up now, and some would go for this, the glorious type of risk or whatever. I'm not really someone who likes doing either of those. I like to try to play it within the historical context as much as I can. All right, so on to the last. Well, the Russians, on the other hand, they've pushed down to try to trigger that event. But they've also, and they're not going to make any attacks down here. The numbers just aren't good. But here they've managed to get a 1-to-1 attack. Now, normally you wouldn't do that, but with 2 shifts in my favor and the end of the game here and the fact that Germans pay more for losses, it seems worthwhile. So that puts us on this 3-to-1 chart, and we don't get a terribly good roll. However, here's where the Germans have to make their decision. This space, if I take a retreat, that's worth 4 victory points. If I don't retreat, it's 2, 4, 5, 3 steps. That's like 18 victory points. So retreat we do, and that means the Russians are going to have to lose 3 steps, which is 12 victory points for them, not what the city or town was worth. But, oh God, I don't know. I don't even know what I have there. I'm so tired, and I'm going to assume that's correct, but I got no idea what I just did. All right, well, the Russians get to advance, and yes, they do get to advance and get to take that, and that'll be worth some points to them. On the German turn, the only really important thing here is, does this come in? And we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. So that's plus 6. And 60 more makes plus 12. I'm at like plus 9. It's guaranteed that 45 extra points is going to come in. I'm going to call it here because the Germans really probably are going to be extricating themselves from East Prussia at this point as best as they can. That's probably the most reasonable thing that they can do. They can't face this. And very, very different situation than you saw historically. What did I do wrong? Because every other time I've played this, that I can remember, the Russians were just stalled. I think I was too aggressive with my Germans. I've gotten kind of, the last couple times I played opposed. I've gotten kind of used to being able to get away with more. Certainly against my wife, I had her pinned up against the corner of the map, which is just a terrible thing. I mean, actually up here, and was destroying Rennenkampf's army. Well, there is actually water not too far from here, so in a sense it's not that unrealistic, but I think also the last, I can remember 2 more times playing it fairly recently. I have not played this solitaire in a long time. I was very young when I played it solitaire, and you know what? I thought the game was always kind of unexciting in the sense that, well, the Germans didn't really want to do much because it's just too risky for them to attack. And I'm beginning to think that original assessment and feeling about it for the Germans is correct. Their best route to victory may just be to be very passive and give ground slowly. Take opportunities where they come, but I got so caught up in trying to destroy Samsonov that I took losses that perhaps I shouldn't have. In the end, though, had I defended both sides kind of equally, I might have been able to pick off a unit here and there and give ground a little slower to Rennenkampf. I'm not sure. It really did feel like the Russians would have gotten, if I had put more here, I think the Russians would have still been able to push forward, and I think Samsonov might have been able to push a little bit too. So it may be actually a very even scenario, and not the kind of stasis that I was worried that it was. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm totally punch drunk right now. I want to do the second Masurian Lakes before I review this, because I want to take a look a little bit more at the system. The simple fact that this is over here, that the rules to the game, part of them are in here, where charts and tables are, etc., that has been a negative for me for this. And sadly, a lot of space here on the design credits. Unit designation, I don't really need that on my... I don't need to look that up as much. Yes, I did use it a couple of times because the abbreviations are kind of painful here. All right. Well, I'll come back after I've read the rules specific to the next scenario, as well as setting it up. I'm not going to do the encirclement and destruction, which is simply a portion of the scenario we just played. All right, up it goes.